A production of Flint Energies, your local touch-tone energy cooperative. Front Porch Chats brings you along while we share interesting events, places to go, important programs, and hidden gems located in Central and Southwest Georgia. Grab a glass of iced tea while we chat for a spell. Hi, I'm your host, Natalie Bradley, and today we are talking about empowering tomorrow's leaders through youth leadership, and we're going to talk a little bit about adult leadership development as well. We have a special guest with us today. We actually have our very own CEO for Flint Energies, Jeremy Nelms, is with me today. And I'm going to let him introduce himself in just a minute. And you'll find out why he is the perfect person to be featured on this podcast. We are really excited about this year's youth leadership program because we are wrapping up our very first year of our rural regional program that we call Empower. And it has been a very successful and transformative year with these students. And we've had a lot of questions about the program. So we thought that this would be a great opportunity to feature this as a bonus episode on our podcast. So Jeremy, thank you so much for being with me today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Natalie, for just allowing me to come in and participate today. I'm excited about this opportunity. I'm excited about Front Porch Chats, and I've enjoyed the podcast episodes that I've listened to so far. And I'm humbled and flattered that you even asked me to join you today to participate. And as you said, just a little bit of background for me. My name is Jeremy Nelms. I am the CEO here at Flint. I have been here. I came in October of 2020, which was a really weird time to change jobs and start a new job. But it's worked out well, and I'm getting close, not too far from my 4-year anniversary. So I'm excited about that. And my background is electrical engineering, and I have been in the electric cooperative industry for the past 17 years. I have spent time in North Florida working at Talcon Electric Cooperative, and then Blue Ridge Mountain EMC up in Young Harris, Georgia. So I have fully embraced. I have the EMC tattoo, as they might say. I'm all in on what electric cooperatives are doing and the why behind our mission. So yeah, thank you for having me today.
Yeah, absolutely. So why don't we just start off with talking about why is leadership development important to begin with? A lot of people have said things like, well, aren't you just born with those traits? I don't understand why we need a program for it, or how can you make somebody become a leader? I feel like you either are or you aren't. So why do we care about this?
For me specifically, I came out of Auburn and got me a job, and I was looking for a job, got an engineering position. And worked as an engineer for a couple of years and realized quickly that there is much more that I could be doing and much more that I could be adding, more value that I could be adding to what my company was doing at the time. But I realized that you maybe have to be in a position of influence to make that happen. And in order to do that, you need to be looking towards leadership. And so I got the opportunity while I was in Tallahassee, Florida, got my MBA, which opened some doors for me, allowed me to take that next step into senior leadership at electric cooperatives. But beyond just the position or the pay that came with it, I really saw that there was an opportunity to make a difference in maybe new technology that we were looking at, or new opportunities to add value back into the community. So for me, leadership is incredibly important because it really just allows you, it opens those opportunities, those doors for you to step up and add value to the community or add value to the company.
So why do we sponsor youth leadership development programs, and why do you think it's important to start leadership with our youth?
I think that from a rural electric cooperative standpoint, we don't have this huge talent pool traditionally that we can pull from, like say metro areas would have. Mm-hmm. So from Flint's perspective, or from any rural electric cooperative perspective, I think you've got to start young. You've got to start with your youth and start looking for the potential in those future leaders out there, because the hope is they see some value in sticking around, maybe they're in the rural community that they grew up in. And we've got to look for that talent, develop that talent, and see if we can find those future leaders here at Flint. And just getting into the schools and finding them early, finding them raw, and starting to develop them, to me is very important. And that's why I think we're we're taking the time and we're investing the time and money into developing them with this Empower program.
One of the things that has been really interesting, I think, with the program that we've seen is that if you haven't been through a leadership development program, it's not teaching through like a traditional way of learning, like with a book and you take notes and you take a test. It's like it's hands-on, immersive, experience-based learning. And these kids just like soak it up like a sponge. I mean, especially in our rural communities, I feel like we keep hearing over and over again, I've never had the opportunity to do this. I've never seen this. They're meeting people from outside of their county. You know, a lot of these rural kids, they recognize the faces that they see every day, which is very comforting. But I also think it's been eye-opening and comforting and inspiring to see people outside of their county who care about them too. I mean, we're strangers. And, you know, in the beginning, we had to win their trust over because they're like, why do you care about me? You're not my aunt, uncle, relative, you know, you don't live in my county. But getting that support and investing in them, I think it's been really interesting to kind of see the confidence that has come with that. And that's been a surprising benefit, I think, of the program.
Oh, my time with them has been fairly limited, but I can tell you that starting last fall to where we are today has been a tremendous evolution. You know, you can sit, you can read leadership books all day long, or you can be as academic as you possibly want to from an organizational behavior standpoint. But there's no better way to really figure out if you've got the chops to be in leadership than to just get out there and do it. And I love this. Like I think the word you used was immersive. I love the immersive approach we've taken, kind of forcing them to get uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. And I've heard it said that the best way to build your comfort zone is to get a little uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And these kids, I mean, you got to love it. They've been forced to get a little uncomfortable. Just the time that I've spent with them, watching some of those kids out there in our rural counties get the opportunity to go up to the Capitol and get exposed to things that they've never been exposed to in their life. But I think for them, you got to get that first one out of the way. But the next time they have to go to the Capitol, you know, some of them may work at the Capitol at some point. It will not be totally foreign to them. And I am just so proud of the evolution that I've seen, and just amazing what just a little bit of effort that we're putting into those kids. It's opening their eyes, which will hopefully open the doors for them.
Yes, it's one of the most rewarding things that I do with Flint. And that's been surprising. I love kids, but I didn't realize how much I would love this program. We not only have Empower, we do support other leadership programs like Blair Brown from the communications department. She is a mentor for the Perry Youth Leadership Group. And then we provide support when needed for the Robbins Regional Youth Leadership Program. But Empower is one that Flint Energies has developed from the ground up. And we create the curriculum and organize and coordinate it with 7 counties. So those counties include Crawford, Macon, Marion, Peach, Sly, Talbot, and Taylor. And it's for children that are going to be juniors. So when they apply, they're sophomores because we want them when they're juniors the following school year. We also open this up to homeschool students that are within those counties. And when this comes out, we will have closed our applications and we will be in the middle of interviewing for the 2024-2025 school year. But you can, you know, every year we open it back up, and you can follow our Facebook page and be able to see when those applications come back out. I think it's also one of the only of its type in the state of Georgia, which is really exciting to kind of be on the cusp of it. What's really neat to me is this idea actually came about a couple years ago, if I'm correct. Where did it come from? Like, what sparked the idea?
I think it was probably during the middle of COVID when I was still here, and we were all kind of sitting around a room wearing masks and just trying to avoid the virus. But there was a lot of discussion about what was happening with our youth out there, and how folks were getting left behind, and these kids in school were really struggling. And we had attempted to support on an individual basis, individual counties, their youth leadership programs. And you'll find in leadership, it always takes a champion to make something happen. And I think the struggle we were finding was we were having to find 7 or 8 champions, one for each county, to make it happen. Mm-hmm. And we wanted to have some some consistency throughout. And that was just proven to be really challenging. I think COVID certainly didn't help it, but we were having some challenges before that. So as we were standing around brainstorming, we thought, well, instead of trying to force this, why don't we take a step back and look at it from a little different angle and maybe take some of the best and the brightest from each county and just shepherd it along our own path. I mean, I know where there's at least a few champions, and that's right here in Flint. And that conversation sparked some interest. And fortunately, you came on, I think, just a little over a year ago,
Mm-hmm.
and that seed was planted, and now it's grown into what it is today. And I could not be more pleased that just a conversation around the table 2 or 3 years ago has turned into what it has, and now it's literally changing people's lives.
Yeah, it's exciting. And what's really neat to me, coming from working for the state as a regional representative and being in that economic development and community development world where regionalism was preached every single day, and then coming here and hearing, we have this idea, but, we're having a hard time, getting it off the ground. I was like, this is perfect, especially for the region that we were talking about, because I'm so familiar with those counties. Those are the areas in particular that it's my job to focus on those. And, some of the counties have dynamic leadership and champions, like you said, but a lot of times they're tapped out, and they're the ones that are wearing so many hats. And it's hard to make it all happen day in, day out, year in, year out, and it's after a while, sometimes I think things, you got to kind of shake the dust off, and revamp it. And so even some of the successful communities, like Taylor County and Crawford County are two really good examples where they had strong programs already on their own, but they felt like they needed that support, and they wanted to shake it up. They weren't sure exactly which way to go, and they loved the kids being exposed to other kids not in their own county and experiences not in their own county. And sometimes you want them to go out there, gather all that experience that they can from other places, get a different perspective, and bring it home and figure out how to solve problems that they saw, that they grew up with, or challenges or opportunities that are there. But if you see the same things your whole life, I think sometimes it creates this weird tunnel vision where you're not able to come up with creative solutions sometimes. And these kids are smart, how they're able to, we'll come back and, I'll ask them things, what did you get out of this? What did you see today? How does this relate to home? And we always bring it back. Like, how does this relate to what you see in your town? Do you understand now what your Chamber of Commerce does? Do you understand now what your city government does? And they're like, I didn't realize that this, what these people are doing all the time. I had no idea their job was that hard, but it's exciting. And so it's been really interesting to kind of see those light bulbs go off. One of the other things that I want to make sure that we talk about and mention, and this was eye-opening for me actually, as I was doing research about this time last year to develop curriculum for the very first year. In my mind, to begin with, I was picturing the kids that were going to be in the program, and they would be a lot like I was in high school, and an overachiever, a go-getter, and straight A student, and president of all the things, very involved. And then I started reading more and more about youth leadership in particular, and it really opened my mind to, you're missing a whole segment of students. And about that same time, my daughter was also going through some things, and I started looking at her and thinking about her personality and how she would fit into this, because she is a leader, but she is not like I was in high school. Her personality is different from mine. She's more introverted. She's shy at the beginning, but she's still a leader. And I thought, well, those are actually the leaders that often get overlooked because they're quieter, and they kind of they step back and they take a pause, or they're the observers before they jump in. And that doesn't make them any less valuable or any less of a leader. It's just a different perspective and a different personality and different strengths, as we discovered by doing the Clifton Strengths Assessment with the kids. And so one of the things that we made sure that we did last year was tell the counselors in the school system, or whoever it was that was working with, letting the students know about this program, is that we don't just want the kids that are already great leaders in your school, because they're going to be great no matter what. Obviously, we want to lift them up and keep, polishing those skills. but we're also looking for those kids that are kind of maybe teetering on the edge, or you've seen something in them that could make them a great leader, but for whatever reason, they haven't taken flight yet. I don't know why, that may be because they didn't have somebody that did champion them. Maybe it's because they don't have the confidence. Maybe it's because they've been told a leader doesn't look like you in terms of you're quiet, all those things that we just talked about. We did the interviews in particular. Macon County was the first one that we did. And there were probably 4 or 5 students, and it came up in every single interview. And we did these individually, so they didn't get to hear what the others said. And the kids would say things like, we asked them why they should be selected for the program. Why do they think that they were a good leader? And some of them were planted questions on purpose because we wanted to see, did they think they were a leader? Did they not? Those kind of things. And the kids that were more introverted or tended to be shy, they said, I actually don't think I'm a good leader, or I don't think you should select me for this program. And their eyes would just well up with tears immediately. And I'm very, empathic, and, I relate to people, and I'm very touchy-feely about things. And so, of course, then, my eyes are welling up, and I'm like, no, do not sell yourself short. And those are the ones that I just wanted to scoop up and immediately, just give them a hug, which I did not because I didn't want to make it awkward since they just met me. but they know, and I've highlighted some of these kids in particular in person at Kiwanis meetings in different places, and said, you see this student, she is a wonderful leader, but just because she's quiet, she's been told she does not qualify. And we want to bust through that myth and that lie. That is not true. And I think that this program, it's opened my eyes, it's opened their eyes, it's helped the schools and the chambers see leadership differently. And I think going through the Clifton Strengths Assessment, which is the very first thing that we do each year with Georgia EMC, they facilitate that, and it helps these students figure out what are their gifts. It's innate to them for whatever reason, or maybe it's just learned through experiences. They're all different. No 2 people in the room were the same. And they left that first meeting just feeling so much better about themselves. And I think those are the kids that we want to make sure that people know they are just as qualified. And those are the ones that I honestly get the most excited about, because you can see the change.
And to me, it's those types of individuals, it is still in a leadership role, but they're doing more than they're talking.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with that, because I tell you, you talked about the folks in the counties, the 1 or 2 champions that are out there. The reality is they're potentially starting to get some age on them. And then if something happens to those 1 or 2 that are in that county, what happens to that county? I think I see this Empower program hopefully bringing in some bench strength, some succession, so that there's that next generation of champion for Schley County or Marion County, so that when something happens to whoever those 1 or 2 that have held it all together, stitched together,
right,
and duct taped together for the last whatever years, there's 2 more that are coming in right behind them, and they're not going to be waving the flags and asking for all the accolades. They're going to keep their head down, and they're just going to get the job done, and the community's going to prosper. And going to do awesome for a whole nother generation just because of those guys.
Absolutely. And, there's been a lot of things that's been said about this generation. You hear it day in and day out, people complaining, and they've just grown up differently than Gen X and even millennials and older, but they're smart and they feel and they're bright, but they may just approach it differently. And they've made me feel really good about our future, honestly. And they're very good collaborators. I've seen even people that said they don't work well with others. They really do. And it's made me feel really, really good about our future. So actually, this is a great segue for what do you hope to see happen in the next few years with this program?
Well, like anything that I like to get started with, I hope it just continues to grow and get better. I mean, I know we're bringing another county online here very soon. This next year, we got Peach County coming in. I'm hoping that some of this current class, this first class of Empower, I'm hoping that in the next couple of years, we are able to take advantage of having 1 or 2 of them come here and join us here at Flint.
Yeah.
I'm all about growing our own, and the best way to start is with those kids in that high school. And I'd be honored, I'd be flattered if they wanted to come back here and give back to to Flint and allow us to help them take care of their family, take care of them, for another generation. We've got multi generational employees in this organization, and it's because some of these folks have had grandparents and parents that have seen how their families have prospered for years. I want to continue this, and I think this Empower program will maybe open some eyes to some people that otherwise didn't know what existed at Flint Energies, that building in Reynolds or that building here in Warner Robins. What's it mean to work for an electric utility? This is not a career services role for Flint, but they are getting exposed to what Flint does here. There's a lot that happens here from a marketing and accounting and an engineering and a member services standpoint. We have 240 positions across this 17 county territory, and we're always looking for some talented folks. I'd love to see that, but even beyond that, I'd love to see if one of them goes and becomes the class president at Fort Valley State University, awesome. And I will know that the Empower program and being pushed to get a little uncomfortable could be what helped them get there. So
Absolutely.
Anything to just stay plugged in with those kids and seeing the value that they bring back to our community. That's what I hope.
Absolutely. Every single month that we met, they kept saying, we had no idea that an EMC did all this, and we had no idea that cooperatives cared about us this much. And, so that educational piece has been on purpose, but also a lot of it has been byproducts of them just seeing how the program has developed and just being with us in the space with us. And, when all of y'all came to the Capitol and joined us, we had multiple people from Flint that showed up. We had Jeremy was there as our CEO, but then we also had one of our vice presidents. We had some other people that work in various departments, and they just thought that was so cool, that like these people came with us, like this is really neat, and got to interact with you guys. And a lot of them I've said, like, I've never met a CEO. And I was like, well, you might have, and you just didn't know it. They're just people like you and me. But that means the world to them to see people genuinely care about them and just be interested and stand side by side with them. And meeting the governor and being in the picture with the governor was just really a really fun highlight in this whole situation.
Well, there's a whole reason that I've worked my entire professional career in this industry. And, for the first 2 years, it was just to have a job. But for the last 15, it's because I truly believe it. It's not, Flint's mission statement is to exceed the expectations of those we serve at every opportunity. It does not say anything about electricity.
Right.
Not one bit. Because electricity is just what we do. That is not the why behind anything that we do.
Mm-hmm.
It helps us accomplish our mission. We do provide safe, reliable, cost-effective electricity. But more importantly, we build our community in a lot of ways. And I know this podcast covers a lot of the ways that we do that. But in this particular one, building that youth, building that foundation, making sure that next generation of youth leaders, our Flint leaders, are out there and waiting and just looking for that right opportunity. And now they see that there are opportunities at Flint. That would be great. But even beyond that, some of the field trips that you've done shows them there's other opportunities all throughout our territory. They don't have to go to Metro Atlanta or to Jacksonville or to Nashville, because they can come back and they can stay here and work, and have a good living and not just struggle, which I think maybe what they've been exposed to.
Yeah.
And there's just more to it out there.
Absolutely. So many of us in the cooperative world are in various adult leadership programs. And this year, you're a part of Leadership Georgia. Why do you feel like it's important to continue this leadership development over time instead of, one and done, like check mark, I'm done with leadership? What does that mean?
So for whatever reason, I guess I'm getting some age on me now, but I really like our founding fathers. I really enjoyed getting immersed into presidential history and just the time, when those individuals were making the decision to sign the Declaration of Independence. And there's so much to talk about, some really interesting individuals and some daring steps that they made. But one in particular, not necessarily a traditional family father, but one we've all heard of, Benjamin Franklin. He has this great quote that says, "Without continual growth and progress, such words as improvement, achievement, and success have no meaning. So, from my perspective, started out early in my career just with a job, and saw an opportunity to get more involved in things and further my education. I was very fortunate and blessed to get an MBA while I was at Florida State University, because it opened some doors for me. It allowed you to, education. I know it's not for everybody, but in certain roles, if you want to progress, it certainly helps open the door for that. And I always encourage people to pursue education, because I think honestly it's one of those things that can never be taken away from you. So I've always had that mindset, and it has worked out fairly well for me. I hope, but I've still got so much to learn, and I hope I'm never at a point where I say, well, okay, good, I'm done. I can close the chapter on that. And for me, Leadership Georgia, I wanted to get exposed to how I now, I guess you could say, in a position of influence, how I can use that influence to help my community grow and get better. And that's exactly what I'm doing with this. I'm getting an opportunity to visit different parts of the state, and I've got 125 peers in the class with me, and they're all of position of influence from all the way up at Lake Hartwell, way up in the northeast Georgia mountains, all the way down to Donaldsonville, and everywhere in between. And we are all focused on trying to make our communities better. I'm really excited about what Leadership Georgia is going to mean for us. I'm hoping that I can encourage other people here at Flint to get involved in it. But even beyond that, we've got our own internal management leadership development program that we try to expose rising up and comers, I'll call them, here at Flint, to what it means to be a part of, to be in the room where it happens from a Flint perspective, and understand how a member gets served, whether it be through the electricity or through the power bill, or how the checks go out, or how the phones get answered, or anything. They get exposed to all aspects of that. It's all about continual leadership for me, because, to be honest with you, if you're not continuing to grow, then you're dying on the vine. And I refuse to die on the vine. And I refuse to have people that are going to be down on the vine with me.
Yes, I love that. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
This has been, I've said it many times, and I know I'll keep saying it, but working at Flint Energies has been the most rewarding thing I've ever done as an adult. And it's just incredible to see how many lives we touch and how much we do for the communities, how many things we do for our members. And it's a genuine experience at work, which is rare, I feel like. And I think that that's what makes it so special, is that all the way from the top, you can feel the heart and soul of our community here, our Flint community, and that pours out into the communities that we serve. And I think that that makes all the difference. I really do. And it is so rewarding to be able to look for the good of all, as opposed to just myself.
Yeah. And I will echo that. I'm doing all I can to just continue to foster it. But it existed well before I got here.
Yeah.
And it will exist well after I'm gone. But when I came here and interviewed in April of 2020, when nobody knew what was going to happen with COVID, and I walked into a room wearing a mask with a board and interviewing with them, and they were probably looking at me a little funny. It just really intrigued me that during the interview, the board was talking about the Flint family. And I've worked for boards. I've had boards in my previous 15 years, 16 years at the time, they didn't have the tattoo like the employees did. But here, this board gets it. So to say it starts at the top, it does start at the top, all the way at the top, with our board chairman, and works its way down
Absolutely.
to the folks answering the phone, or the folks digging the hole out there. I think people truly believe here that we're here to serve the membership of Flint, and if we can ensure that Flint membership is successful, then Flint will continue to be successful for many generations.
Well, thank you again. And in the show notes, I'm going to link to a blog post that's all about our Empower program. And if you are a Flint member and you have the Georgia Magazine in front of you, and this month, that's April's issue of Georgia Magazine in the Flint area, you will be able to read the article about Empower and learn a little bit more about that program. If you're not a Flint member and you want access to that magazine article, I'm also going to link that in the show notes so that you can read that online. Thank you for joining us today. Until we chat again, I hope you get out and explore all that Central and Southwest Georgia have to offer.